The world of modern teenagers differs fundamentally from what previous generations knew. They are the first to not remember life without the internet and social networks. According to recent studies, the average teenager spends 4 to 6 hours daily on social media. 9 out of 10 teenagers have accounts on at least 3 different platforms. This is not just statistics. This is a new reality in which young people's personalities are formed. Social networks have become invisible architects of worldviews, subtly guiding thoughts, shaping values, and defining life priorities. They are no longer just a means of communication. They have become a lens through which teenagers view the world. But what image of the world does this lens create? How distorted is it by algorithms and filters? How can one distinguish reality from digital illusion? These questions become critically important in an era when virtual space shapes real beliefs. We stand on the threshold of a new era where the digital generation will define the future, relying on values formed in endless news feeds and content streams. Family, school, yard, traditional spaces where a teenager's personality was formed are now giving way to a new social institution: social networks. Virtual platforms have become the key environment where young people go through the most important stages of personality formation. Here they define who they are, what they want, and what they believe in. Unlike previous generations, modern teenagers are socialized in a space where geographical boundaries are erased and opportunities for self-presentation are virtually limitless. The digital environment offers what is often lacking in the real world: a sense of belonging, understanding, and recognition. Virtual communities form a new social reality where a teenager can try on different identities, experiment with self-expression, and find like-minded people even in the most niche hobbies. Studies show that for 70% of teenagers, peer reactions on social media are more important than the opinions of parents or teachers. Likes, comments, and subscriptions have turned into a new currency of social approval, shaping a system of values and behavioral patterns. Virtual influencers become role models, replacing traditional authorities. Their lifestyle, opinions, and values are perceived as a standard to aspire to. Paradoxically, digital socialization simultaneously expands horizons and narrows worldview. On the one hand, a teenager gains access to a global cultural context. On the other hand, algorithms create an informational cocoon around them, reflecting existing preferences. Social platforms have become not just a place for communication, but also a space where the political views, aesthetic preferences, and moral guidelines of the younger generation are formed. Behind every tap and scroll on social media lies an invisible yet powerful force: personalization algorithms. These digital mechanisms continuously analyze every action a teenager takes: which videos they watch to the end, which photos they linger on, which comments elicit an emotional response. Tech giants collect billions of data points, creating a unique digital portrait of each user. Algorithms operate on the principle of reinforcing interest. The more attention a teenager pays to a certain topic, the more similar content will appear in their feed. At first glance, this looks like user care. Indeed, who wouldn't like to receive exactly what interests them? But beneath this convenience lies a psychological trap. Personalized algorithms create what experts call a filter bubble, an informational space that reflects existing interests and beliefs. For the developing brain of a teenager, this has particular significance. During a period when a worldview is forming, algorithms subtly narrow horizons, creating the illusion that the entire world thinks and feels the same way. Psychological studies show that the human brain experiences pleasure from the confirmation of its own views. This phenomenon, known as cognitive reinforcement, activates pleasure centers in the brain. Social platforms skillfully exploit this feature, turning the viewing of personalized content into a kind of addiction. Each new post that confirms an existing viewpoint triggers a microdose of dopamine, the pleasure neurotransmitter. Teenagers are particularly vulnerable to this mechanism as their neural system is in a state of active formation. Their brains are literally restructuring under the influence of digital stimuli, creating neural connections that will determine their perception of the world in adulthood. Imagine a world where you only hear what you want to hear, where every piece of news, every opinion, and every idea only reinforces your existing worldview. This is precisely the space modern teenagers find themselves in when they immerse themselves in social media. This phenomenon has been dubbed the echo chamber, an informational bubble where one's own beliefs are repeatedly reflected, amplified, and returned, creating the illusion of their absolute correctness and universal acceptance. Echo chambers form at the intersection of technology and psychology. On one hand, social platform algorithms methodically filter content, showing users what aligns with their interests and views. On the other hand, people subconsciously gravitate towards information that confirms their pre-existing opinions. This combination creates a vicious cycle of self-validation. Echo chambers pose a particular danger to teenagers, whose system of values and beliefs is still developing. Research shows that staying in an informational bubble leads to the radicalization of views. Moderate positions gradually become more extreme, as teenagers do not encounter alternative viewpoints. The effect of group polarization arises when like-minded people, through interaction, only strengthen and amplify their initial beliefs. In virtual communities, this leads to the formation of radical interest groups, from harmless fan associations to dangerous ideological movements. Social platforms, striving to retain user attention, often promote emotionally charged, provocative content, which only intensifies polarization. Psychologists note a troubling trend. Teenagers who regularly inhabit echo chambers lose the ability to perceive alternative viewpoints. Any information contradicting their beliefs is automatically rejected as false or hostile. In the world of digital information, teenagers daily encounter an invisible adversary: disinformation. This is not merely false news or inaccurate facts. These are meticulously crafted campaigns aimed at shaping specific beliefs and behavioral patterns in the younger generation. Social media has become the ideal environment for spreading manipulative content, disguised as reliable information. A striking example is the campaign promoting dangerous dietary challenges, which has reached millions of teenagers worldwide. Seemingly harmless challenges, encouraging extreme dietary restrictions, have led to serious consequences for the physical and mental health of thousands of young people. Why do teenagers, specifically, become the primary target of manipulators? Neuroscientists point to the peculiarities of the developing brain. In adolescence, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for critical thinking and risk assessment, is not yet fully formed. At the same time, the limbic system, the center of emotional reactions, operates at full capacity. This combination creates a unique vulnerability to emotionally charged information. Disinformation creators masterfully use psychological triggers that evoke strong emotional responses: fear, outrage, a sense of belonging to an elite group. Research shows emotionally charged fakes spread 6 times faster than reliable information. Manipulations that play on the adolescent desire for identity and acceptance are particularly effective. Disinformation campaigns often exploit young people's natural desire to be part of a movement, to fight for justice, or to oppose the system. Distinguishing truth from manipulation is becoming increasingly difficult with the advent of deepfake technologies. Synthetic media created with artificial intelligence. Videos and audio indistinguishable from reality form a distorted worldview in teenagers. undermining trust in all sources of information. In the digital world, a teenager creates not just a profile, they construct a version of themselves. Virtual identity becomes a malleable material that can be molded, transformed, and adapted to various contexts. One selfie, one post, one comment. These are the bricks from which the digital self is built. Psychologists call this phenomenon multiple identity, the ability to exist simultaneously in several social roles, often radically different from each other. On TikTok, a teenager might be a dancer. On Discord, a strategist. On Twitter, a political activist. Each platform becomes a stage for a separate performance, where the young individual tries on different masks and costumes. Unlike the real world, where identity formation occurs through the gradual accumulation of experience, in social networks, this process is accelerated and fragmented. Studies show that 70% of teenagers admit that their online persona differs significantly from their real one. This is not just a game. It's serious work on self-construction under the scrutinizing gaze of hundreds and sometimes thousands of observers. Constant feedback in the form of likes, comments, and subscriptions shapes self-esteem, tying a sense of self-worth to digital metrics. Psychologists note a new phenomenon: validation addiction, where a teenager's emotional well-being is directly linked to the audience's reaction to their digital image. Particularly alarming is the effect of social comparison, amplified by the visual nature of modern platforms. The endless feed of filtered, retouched, and idealized images creates unrealistic standards of appearance, success, and lifestyle. A teenager, comparing themselves to these images, inevitably feels inadequate, which undermines developing self-esteem. Every like, every comment, every video watched subtly reshapes the value system of the modern teenager. Social networks have become invisible mentors, forming ideas about what is good and what is bad, what is worthy of admiration, and what is worthy of condemnation. In this virtual school of life, the main teachers are not parents or educators, but influencers, the new moral authorities of the digital age. Their lifestyle, opinions, and actions become the standard for millions of teenagers. Research shows that 7 out of 10 young people admit that they changed their views on life success under the influence of content on social networks. Traditional values, education, professional mastery, spiritual development, are giving way to new benchmarks: external attractiveness, material well-being, and public recognition. Virtual platforms create a distorted perception of reality, where success is measured by the number of subscribers and happiness by branded items. Materialism and consumerism become dominant attitudes. Teenagers see luxury cars, designer clothes, and exotic travels as essential attributes of an accomplished person. This transformation of values occurs so smoothly and imperceptibly that neither the teenagers themselves nor their parents often realize the scale of the changes. The shift in ethical guidelines causes particular concern. In pursuit of views and likes, the boundaries of acceptable behavior are blurred. Pranks, challenges, and provocative content normalize actions that would be considered unacceptable in the real world. The virtual environment creates an illusion of impunity and a detachment of actions from their consequences. Recent scientific research provides convincing evidence of the influence of social networks on the worldview formation of adolescence. A Stanford University experiment involving 2,000 participants clearly demonstrated how, in just 3 weeks of regular use of a specific platform, young people's political views change. Participants who received content of a single orientation showed a significant shift towards corresponding beliefs by the end of the study. The documentary project Digital Footprints captured these changes in real time, showing the transformation of adolescents' reasoning from neutral to radical. Particularly striking are video interviews with experiment participants who genuinely believe they arrived at their new beliefs independently, unaware of external influence. Neuroimaging studies from the California Institute of Technology show how different brain regions in adolescence are activated when viewing personalized content. These data are corroborated by eye-tracking heat maps, demonstrating that young users' attention automatically fixates on content that confirms their existing views. Longitudinal studies, tracking changes in adolescents' value orientations over 5 years of active social platform use, are of particular value. Participants' video diaries clearly show how their lexicon, argumentation system, and emotional reactions to socially significant events gradually change. In an era where information surrounds us from all sides, critical thinking becomes not just a useful skill, but a necessary survival tool. For teenagers immersed in the digital environment, the ability to separate facts from manipulation transforms into a key competence of the 21st century. Critical thinking is not an innate ability, but a skill that can and should be developed. Its foundation is conscious doubt and healthy skepticism. Not taking information at face value simply because it looks convincing or comes from a popular source is the first step towards informational independence. Media literacy begins with simple questions. Who created this message? For what purpose? Who benefits from it? What evidence is provided? What is omitted or hidden? These 5 questions become a protective filter through which all information must pass. Psychologists note, teenagers who regularly practice this approach demonstrate greater resistance to manipulation and disinformation. The method of cross-referencing, comparing information from different sources, plays a special role. In a world where any news is instantly replicated, it is important to learn to track down the original source and assess its reliability. An effective strategy is a deliberate exit from the information bubble. Subscribing to resources representing different points of view, communicating with people of different beliefs, purposefully seeking alternative opinions. All this broadens horizons and trains flexibility of thought. It is important to understand, critical thinking is not cynicism and not outright denial of everything. It is a balanced approach based on analysis and reflection. Its goal is not to destroy belief in anything, but to build one's own worldview on a solid foundation of verified facts and conscious convictions. In the epoch of digital socialization, the role of adult mentors transforms, yet does not lose its significance. Parents and educators become guides in the world of informational abundance, helping teenagers form healthy relationships with the digital environment. The modern approach to media education is built not on prohibitions and restrictions, but on open dialogue and joint exploration of virtual space. Effective strategies begin with the recognition of a simple truth. Adults cannot fully control teenagers' digital experience, but they can become reliable advisors on this journey. Research shows families where parents show genuine interest in their children's digital lives demonstrate a higher level of trust and openness. Instead of demonizing social networks, it is more productive to explore them together, discussing both opportunities and risks. The balance between control and trust becomes a key principle. Too strict restrictions lead to the teenager learning to circumvent prohibitions, but not developing independent navigation skills in the digital space. Complete absence of boundaries, on the contrary, leaves the young person one-on-one with potential threats. The golden mean is jointly developed rules, based on mutual respect and understanding of the needs of both sides. Particularly valuable is the experience of joint media consumption, when parents and children watch and discuss content together, developing critical analysis skills. Such discussions help the teenager learn to ask the right questions. Who benefits from this information? What emotions does it evoke and why? What remains behind the scenes? Educators complement parental efforts by integrating elements of media literacy into the educational process. The most successful practices include interactive projects where teenagers themselves become creators of media content, mastering the mechanisms of its impact from within. The theory of critical thinking is good, but without practical application, it remains merely an abstract idea. It's time to turn knowledge into action with specific tools. The first and most accessible is the escape method, a simple mnemonic technique for evaluating information. E. Evidence. What facts support the claim? S. Source. How reliable is the author or platform? C. Context. In what situation was the information created? A. Audience. For whom is the message intended? P. Purpose. Why was this published? E. Execution. How is the information presented? What emotions does it evoke? This algorithm can be turned into a game by analyzing popular posts or news with a teenager. The second tool is a digital detox using a 5-step system. Step 1. Audit applications by measuring the time spent in each. Step 2. Identify triggers that cause the desire to check notifications. Step 3. Set specific periods of digital silence. Step 4. Create alternative offline activities. Step 5. Regular reflection and adjustment of the strategy. The third tool is the technique of breaking echo chambers through deliberate diversity of information sources. Practical exercise. Compile a list of 10 accounts representing opposing views on a topic of interest, and follow them for at least 2 weeks, recording your reactions in a diary. The fourth tool is creating your own media content with a conscious position. Producing, not just consuming information, develops an understanding of influence mechanisms from within. The fifth tool is the 3-question technique for instant information verification. What do I feel after encountering it? Why do I feel these particular emotions? What actions am I prepared to take under the influence of this information? Our research into the influence of social media on adolescent worldviews brings us to a central question: how to live in the digital world without losing oneself. Digital resilience is not about rejecting technology, but rather the ability to consciously interact with it, while maintaining critical thinking and personal integrity. Just as physical immunity protects against diseases, digital resilience safeguards against information manipulation and psychological pressure. This ability becomes a key skill for a generation whose adolescence unfolds in a constant flow of information. The formation of digital resilience begins with the realization of a simple truth. Social networks are a tool, not reality. They can expand opportunities or limit one's horizons. It all depends on how we use them. The balance between the virtual and real worlds becomes the foundation of a healthy digital identity. Adolescents capable of distinguishing online images from real people are less susceptible to the pressure of virtual standards. The future belongs to those who learn to perceive social platforms not as a source of truth, but as a space of diverse perspectives. The ability to break out of information bubbles, seek alternative viewpoints, and form one's own beliefs. That is true digital freedom. The joint efforts of parents, educators, and adolescents themselves create a new culture of digital consumption, where technology serves humanity and not the other way around. The path to digital resilience is a path of mindfulness, where every like, comment, and subscription becomes the result of choice, not an automatic reaction. Only then can we raise a generation that will use the boundless opportunities of the digital world for creation, not self-destruction.